Hi everybody, this is Dr. Schroeder with this week's video introduction to week number 5 in our course in evidence-based practice. And once again, very nice week of discussion and good work. Everybody's been working really hard and working diligently. And so we're well past the halfway point and continuing on with class. In week number 4, the task was a couple things. One, you had your statistics homework, and everybody's got their test in and has turned in those assignments. If you had incorrect answers, and of course just about everybody did have at least a few answers incorrect, those grades have been posted. But overall, very good. The principles of statistics are something that it's been included in the reading. It's been something that you've been looking up while we've gone along, and really just about any good statistics book will point you to some of those statistical concepts. But it's good to keep those in mind, because anytime that we're reviewing and assessing evidence-based practice, it's important to understand that not all statistical tests are created equal, and so it's important to understand and look for the correct statistical application, and to make sure that the researchers, as they're describing the results, that what they describe is consistent with what the statistics and what the quantitative math really shows. And then also we had a discussion this week talking about the AGREE tool, or the AGREE tool and clinical practice guidelines. And again, a very good discussion this week, talking about the limitations and the strengths of the tool. And to boil it down, if I were to take the whole discussion and kind of boil it down into just a few statements, is one that most of you felt that the AGREE tool was helpful, but also limiting. Limited because it is a rather generic tool. It's not written to be specific for any one type of clinical practice or any one type of PICO question, or excuse me, any one type of clinical practice guideline. But that's part of its strength also, because it is adaptable. It is just a tool, just because somebody has the world's best hammer doesn't mean that they necessarily know how to hammer a nail correctly, or just because somebody has a $500 buzzsaw doesn't mean that they can cut a straight line or cut the wood correctly. So it's being a tool is it's only as strong as the person that's actually using it. But having a well-designed tool is important, and the AGREE tool is generally considered to be a very well-designed tool. And the discussion this week discussed clinical practice guidelines, how they're important, and how it is a constantly dynamic and changing thing, all these things that we're doing that we call evidence-based practice. And so on to week number 5. The only written assignment you have due this week is a discussion question, and we're going to shift gears a little bit and start talking about your PICO again. And you're going to reflect back on your PICO question, and we're going to talk about the next step. This week and next week we'll be talking about implementation of your evidence-based practice, whatever intervention it is that you came up with. And this is the week where you need to really start taking that information that you developed from part 1 and start to look at how are you going to now take that and come up with a really well-defined intervention. Some of you were struggling a little bit, specifically exactly what are you going to do with your PICO? You had some great ideas, but it was still a bit general. You were talking in generalities about what your intervention was going to be, and you really have to now be specific, because you're going to be talking about actually developing a specific implementation, how you're going to, and then think about and write about how you're going to present it and how you're going to teach it. How are you going to implement it with your staff? How are you going to track it? Who's going to evaluate it? All of these things are going to be part of your evidence-based practice part 2 paper that's going to be due in week 6. Your step this week is to talk about the model that you would use to measure evaluations. When we talk a little bit about change models and the barriers that come about with change. This is an important concept anytime we're talking about new practice. There's always a tendency, it seems, for the old practice to sort of take over and the new practice to never really be fully implemented or never be given a full trial. And so we're going to be addressing that this week and reviewing one of a variety of different models that you'll be reading about and then discussing on how that applies to your evidence-based practice project. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them or go ahead and let me know. Just know as you start working on that evidence-based practice part 2, look at the matrices, and if you have any questions, let me know. You're going to be asked to do an implementation plan and an evaluation plan. How are you going to implement? How are you going to evaluate? This week's discussion starts that process, but you want to start looking and kind of keep that on your radar screen as something that you're going to have to start addressing now as you start to write that paper. So, as always, as you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and post them. I look forward to participating with all of you in class. I'd imagine that your grading this week will probably be done about midweek or so. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. But I look forward to participating in discussions once again, and I'll see you in class.